Today, I want to give you a framework that you can use if you're struggling with a porn addiction. But I believe that this framework can be used in any area of your life. If there's a habit or behavior that you want to change and ultimately transform your life. And it's going to take us to actually understanding what is the anatomy of a habit? How does a trigger lead us to our behaviors? And how does the trigger lead us to thinking that we're going to get the reward? So we can understand how a habit is actually broken down. And we can be intentional about setting ourselves up for success. That, in my opinion, is the path to overcoming our porn addiction for good. But at the end of the day, creating a life of productivity, creating a life that serves us, because we are now in control of our behaviors. And the first thing we must do is we must understand what is the anatomy of a habit. Every action that we take on a continuous basis, every habit that we have throughout our lives is broken down into 3 steps. There's always going to be a trigger, something that initiates the action taking forward, something that initiates the behavior that we're about to embark on. Now, with struggling with pornography, it could be a trigger of loneliness. It could be a trigger of stress. It could be a trigger of we've seen something visually that stimulated us, and now we need to go down the path of satisfying that stimulus. So the first part of every single habit in your life, I don't care what it is, if there's something that you do on a continual basis or a repeated basis, there always is a trigger. For some of you, you're in the habit of hitting snooze. The trigger to hit snooze is when the alarm clock goes off and you wake up. Now, as silly as that sounds, we must understand that the behaviors that we're taking are initiated by some trigger. So the first step is we must identify what those triggers are. The second step in every single habit is the behavior within itself or the action that we're taking. Now, with pornography, whatever the trigger was, loneliness, depression, anxiety, stress, tiredness, we've seen something visually, that was our trigger. Our behavior now is to go find out and consume pornography and masturbate. With hitting snooze, the trigger is going to be the alarm clock going off, you being woken up. The behavior that you're taking is going to be reaching over and hitting the snooze button. So the first 2 steps are every habit has a trigger, and then after the trigger, it's followed by the behavior or the action itself. Now, the third part of every single habit is going to be the reward. So when something triggers us when we're stressed, when something triggers us when we're lonely, our reward that we're seeking is the completion of consuming pornography, that rush of dopamine, those pleasure-seeking chemicals that we get at the end of this. Now, we know that with us, when we're struggling with pornography addiction, there's other things that we're getting that we're not really happy and satisfied about, but oftentimes we forget about that. With hitting the snooze button, trigger happens, alarm clock goes off, you reach over, hit the snooze button. Your reward is you get to lay in bed for an additional 5 to 10 minutes. Now, not the best reward in my opinion, but that is the reward that we're seeking. So once we understand the framework or the anatomy of every single habit, you have a trigger, behavior, reward. We must now be intentional about breaking that down for ourselves and setting ourselves up so that next time that trigger happens, we do not default to the same pattern of behavior. So what we do with our men here inside of our Reboot Your Life coaching program is we actually, in week 1, we walk them through the process of identifying all of those habits. What were the last times you consumed pornography? What was your emotional state? What was your mental state? What was the time of the day? What feelings were you struggling with? What had you visually seen or been stimulated on? And that way, once we're clear on all of the triggers in our life, we can begin to be intentional about creating new behaviors, which is going to be step 2. So instead of every time I'm feeling lonely and stressed, I go and seek out pornography. Next time, what I'm going to do is anytime I'm feeling lonely and stressed, I'm going to reach out to one of the brothers inside of the program. Next time I'm feeling lonely and stressed, I'm going to reach out and I'm going to have a conversation with somebody. Next time I'm feeling lonely and depressed about my life, I'm going to find a way to do something good. I'm going to send a loving gratitude message to somebody else in my life. If it's something that visually stimulated us, maybe we were driving home from the gym, maybe we were at the gym and we saw a beautiful woman across the way and just the look at her eyes just took us just deep down this hole. We're like, man, what an incredibly gorgeous woman. I've never had anybody look at me like that, but I've never been able to satisfy that with a real woman. So I must now go seek out pornography. Instead of doing that, what are some other things that we can be doing? Can we go outside for a walk? Can we pray? Can we meditate? Can we practice some breathing exercises to bring our heart rate down? But that can only happen, men, if we're clear on what those triggers are. So I think a lot of you walking away from this video today need to spend some time in a journal, need to think about the last 5, 10 times you've consumed pornography. What were the triggers that led you up to that behavior? And then instead of reaching out and consuming pornography, what would have been the alternative measures that you could have taken? Like I said, who can you connect with? Who can you have a conversation on? Who can you love on? Who can you serve? Can you bring your heart rate down? Can you go outside? Can you remove yourself from your environment? So take control of the second step of a habit. Now, once you've completed and you've actually now had the formula, so next time I'm triggered, this is what I'm going to do. Now it's on you to execute upon that. But once you do that, reward yourself for that. Have a conversation. Incredible work, Frank. This is who you are, and this is who it is you're becoming. If you want to take it even a step later, give yourself a reward. When you catch yourself doing positive things for your future, when you catch yourself acting in accordance with who you want to be, reward yourself, acknowledge and congratulate yourself. Maybe every time that you do not run into pornography, you drop $5 into a bucket for yourself. And then once that $5 reaches whatever the number is, you go out and you buy something really nice for yourself, something that you've really been working hard to get, or something that you've really, really wanted, but maybe you don't feel like you deserve it. Well, when you act in accordance with who you want to be, you deserve to have the things in your life that you want to have. But if we can understand, once again, man, that every single habit, and maybe the first thing we must need to do is detach ourselves from pornography addiction. Say that we have a habit with consuming pornography that we're not happy and aligned with. The powerful thing about our belief system is we are in control of it. We are in control of the words that we use. We're in control of the words that we speak over ourselves. I think a lot of people struggle with identifying themselves as an addict. I want you to stop that. So instead of saying I have a pornography addiction, I have a habit with pornography that doesn't serve me and I want to change it. And here's the formula for changing those habits. Identify what your triggers are. Begin to create intentional behaviors that are more aligned with who you want to be. And when you act on those behaviors in accordance with who you want to be, reward yourself in a meaningful way. And brother, if you can begin to live this out, it's going to be difficult at first. Yes, I understand that. Maybe you've been struggling for 5 years. Maybe you've been struggling with 10 years. But just because you've been struggling for that long doesn't mean you need to continue to struggle with these habits. So I hope today's formula helped you. I hope having an understanding of why every habit has a trigger, behavior, and reward, and how we can take control of these, in my opinion, gives you the keys to your freedom. Now, if you want an actual formula in a 16-week process to reboot, rewire your brain, begin to build positive habits, but like I said, this formula, this framework is actually what we walk you through in our Reboot Your Life coaching program. So down there in the first pinned comment below, which by the way, guys, Frank Rich here at Rebuilt Recovery, in case you're new to the channel, we've been helping men for the last 2 years, and we've taken over 4,000 men through our 7-step guide. But down there in the first pinned comment below, I'm going to put a link to our course, 16-week Reboot Your Life recovery course, where we walk you through in week 1, identifying what those triggers were, beginning to build positive and productive habits and systems in your life, building connection and community with others, and becoming a man of service, honor, integrity. So I'm gonna link you down there in the first pinned comment below. If you use code FREEDOM, you actually get $100 off the entire course with a 365-day money-back guarantee and lifetime access to the course if you decide to enroll in it today. But Frank Rich from Rebuilt Recovery, man, you have the ability to rewrite, rewire, and change your habits for the good. But you must be intentional about identifying what the triggers are, and you must be intentional about rewarding yourself when you act in accordance with who you want to be. I love you guys. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're new here, because we do drop videos every single day at this point. But Coach Frank, we'll see you on the other side.